There we go. Great. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to tell me a little bit about your story, about how you got out of pain, first starting with how you actually got in pain, or your worst case, scenario of pain?
Sure, absolutely. And I don't know how much detail you'd like me to go into, because I was in pain for many years. So if I'm going on for too much, or if you'd like more detail, just let me know. It started when I was 15. Okay. I developed foot pain, very severe. It was diagnosed as plantar fasciitis. I had sort of had a bout of it out of nowhere. It started absolutely out of nowhere. It went away, and then it came back a couple of years later. It got very severe. I was in a wheelchair. Not even a couple of years later. I'm sorry, I was 16. It was about a year later. Anyway, I ended up in a wheelchair. I had, I tried cortisone, and all the usual stuff for the foot pain. Then my knee started to hurt. I ended up in a wheelchair, a brace, this and that. Anyway, that sort of got better. And then it came back again a year or two after that. At that point, I missed a year of school. I was at university then. I missed a year. I got surgery on my foot. And after that, it was sort of manageable after that surgery, but I couldn't, walk barefoot. I couldn't do sports, anything like that. And then, it was like one thing after another started. I developed eye pain a couple of years later. That got very severe. And I was a software engineer at the time. I worked at a computer. It was very hard to do my job. I would get bouts of back pain. It's sort of, I'm sure people have very similar stories where you sort of get one thing after another. And then when I was 27, after something that happened that I realized later was sort of traumatic for me emotionally, the foot pain came back, and it was worse than ever. And I couldn't walk at all, and just nothing. It was like my life I kind of fell off a cliff in my life, where the pain got so severe. I was not functional. The eye pain came back, everything came back. And then it was sort of building one thing after another. So that lasted for 2 years. And but the end of those 2 years, I had wrist pain, which like carpal tunnel, whatever, was diagnosed as carpal tunnel. Yeah. Whatever you want to call it.
The diagnoses don't really help, but yeah, I mean, they help as and the people understand that, by diagnosing, it's just kind of like putting yourself in a box even more,
Yes, well, I was in many boxes at that point. I had the foot pain. Yeah, I had back pain. I had my Achilles tendon. And I think it's what I always want to really emphasize, because this isn't mentioned in Dr. Sarno's book, is I had inflammation on MRI and on ultrasound. I know in Dr. Sarno's work, he was saying the TMS does not cause inflammation, but it absolutely did in my case. I had multiple imaging, and all of them did show. It
can, for sure.
Yes, and that was, I want to share that, because when I was researching TMS, that was sort of a roadblock for me. I was saying, well, he says it doesn't show anything, but for me it does. Well, it does. Right. For lots of people it does. Yeah. Right. So at that point, so when you have that many boxes you're in, then they call it fibromyalgia, right? Yeah. So I had that diagnosis as well. So I was in a very, very bad place in my life. I really couldn't do anything. And then I discovered Dr. Sarno's work, and I knew immediately. I read this sort of handout online. It was when I was reading about my wrists, about repetitive injuries, right? When you have wrist pain, they call that RSI, repetitive stress injury. Yeah. And I came across Dr. Sarno's work, and I read like a little summary of it. And I was at my computer. I was actually at work, and I just started sobbing. I said, oh my gosh, this is it. That had been 15 years almost at that point. And, I got the Mindbody prescription, and very, very fast, everything got better. The pain that had appeared the most recently, like the wrist pain, went away almost immediately. And then it was sort of like peeling it back one at a time, and then the hardest thing was my foot pain, because that was that had been going on the longest. But what happened was, and I wrote all this, I wrote sort of my own recovery plan and how I went through this. But what happened was, at some point, you overcome a certain psychological barrier where when you actually believe, when I said, okay, I knew it, but I didn't really believe it,
Mhm.
that my pain was TMS and there was nothing wrong with my feet. And I'd gotten all sorts of diagnoses. I had hypermobility. My foot was too long and thin, or, one after another. I was told I'd never be able to walk without orthotics. And, they wanted to put my daughter in orthotics because they said, oh, she has the same type of foot that you do.
Mhm.
Anyway, so I knew all that wasn't true, but I didn't really believe it. But once I got there, once I believed it, it was like I crossed a threshold, and that was it. And at that point, actually, the pain didn't go away. I mean, I had severe atrophy, and the pain was bouncing up and down, but it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't afraid of it anymore. I went back to activity. I had to go slowly because I had such atrophy. It'd been 2 years since I'd really been walking. But that was, I remember, January of that year. And in May of that year, I was at Disney World, which, as many people know, is like a marathon of walking. And it was something I hadn't dreamed that I'd be able to, spend the day at Disney World with my daughter. And then it was, it was fine. I was hiking after that. And since then I don't have pain. I have other, when I don't do the, when I have emotional issues, which of course I continue to have, and I'm learning and I'm getting sort of better and better at recognizing when I'm repressing emotions. And there's a program I'd like to share with your listeners as well that I went through, which was very helpful. But when that happens, I get other symptoms. I'll get for a while, I got colds frequently, and recently I had a bout of asthma. But I really am at this point. This was my recovery was how many years ago now? 8 years ago now. So at this point, I really and truly, I can tell you that I see those as a blessing. When I get a physical symptom, I say, okay, I know this means I have to do emotional work. And I really am at the point now where I can do it pretty quick and get over it, and where I really am grateful for those symptoms. And the pain, I've just never had pain since then, because the pain doesn't work, as a distraction.
Yeah, it doesn't work as a decoy.
No, that's why it's been sort of one symptom after another. Other ones pop up, but again, I recognize them now, and I know that it's just like an alarm bell for me.
Right. So that leads into my next question, which is like, so what do you do in order for you to soothe yourself? Or is there some particular habits or routines, or I like to call them like habits for painless living? So like gratitude diary, or exercise daily, or movement daily. What kind of things do you do in order to keep the pain at bay and, away if you have something like that coming up?
So I do, absolutely. So I went through a program. So a few years after, or maybe a year or two after my pain went away, I developed chronic sinus congestion. It just wouldn't go away. And I knew that this was emotional. I said, okay, this is emotional, but I just couldn't get to what was going on. And it was just by chance, or I guess there's not really any chance in the universe probably, but I was led to a program called A New Life Center, out of Denver, Colorado, but they do things remotely. And it's very similar. I would say most of their clients, it's more about autoimmune disease than pain, but it's very similar. It's really they teach sort of a systematic process of accessing and feeling your feelings, and that helped me tremendously. I did the program, and very shortly into the program, the sinus problems went away. So a lot of my sort of habits now are really are learned from that program. But let me see if I can sort of succinctly say it. Well, the simple habit is I try pretty much every day before bed to sit down with a journal. And I am not a big proponent of gratitude and things like that. I believe that gratitude is all of that is natural. And what we have to do is find what is a barrier to it. So what I believe that instead of focusing on good things in our life, I think trying to focus on good things, you don't need to focus on good things. You will appreciate and love the good things when you clear out the obstacles in the way. So I think you need to focus on those obstacles. So what I do almost every night is I sit down with a journal and I just think, what today bothered me? What triggered me? today emotionally.
Mhm.
Because it, you know, a trigger is really also a sign that you have some unresolved emotional work that you have to do. So if something triggered me, then I try to sit and think, well, okay, why did it trigger me? What did it trigger inside me? What inside me is unresolved? You know, and so really what I do is I call it, you know, I say, and I'm kind of being glib, but I say I don't believe in positive thinking. I believe in negative thinking, in that you have to sit down and really dig into all that negative stuff inside of you. And sometimes, you know, you can actually reach some sort of resolution, but sometimes you don't need to. Just by shining a light on it, that's all that it needs. It lets you process it, and then it resolves. So yeah, that's really it. That's what I do. And when I don't do that for a while and something builds up, I'll get a problem.
Beautiful, but it's so beautiful to see your journey and see how you managed to go overcome it, and that you're the biggest the takeaway that I'm getting from you and what I share with my clients is that when we're in the fear cycle, it absolutely makes everything more chronic and take longer to overcome. So actually breaking down the fear of the pain is one of the biggest, you know, the fastest parts of the puzzle. Like if we can stop the fear of the pain, then the cycle of chronic pain can stop.
Absolutely. And I think Dr. Sarno expresses that just so perfectly, that it's not I don't remember exactly how he says it, but basically it's a knowledge problem. It's because we don't understand what's causing the pain. Once you understand what's causing the pain, you don't have to fear it. The pain is there to help you, actually.
Okay.
The pain is there to help you overcome emotional problems that you have been shoving away inside of yourself. So it really, you know, it's not a belief issue. Or I think it was something like he said, someone asked him, oh, are you asking me to take a leap of faith? And he says, no, there's nothing to do with faith. It has to do with knowledge. It's about truly understanding what is the cause of your pain. Is it because something is wrong with you? Is it because you're broken in some way, irreparably broken, and you are fragile and you have to be so careful and live your life in fear? Or is this pain actually something that your body is doing to help you, you know? And there's nothing wrong with your body. This pain is there to help you progress in your life. And once you understand and know what the cause of the pain is, then you don't have to fear it anymore.
Absolutely. It's so true. And it's what one of the biggest lessons I think that I learned when I was, you know, overcoming my pain was that, you know, as soon as you have the fear goes away that I have a structural problem, like I have a herniated disc, or I have a, you know, a degenerative disc disorder, or whatever the things that we call them. It's something that I'm trying to tell my clients is that, yeah, you can have this box name of fibromyalgia, but as soon as you start having I have this or I am this, then actually you're giving the blueprint to your body tomorrow, but also you're creating the images in your mind of, you know, brokenness or lopsidedness, you know, like one leg is longer than the other, and all the causes that doctors and you know, tell us that these are the reasons why we have the pain. It actually perpetuates the pain by having these diagnoses. I mean, I know that the doctors, the dear doctors, are trying to help, but we need a massive upgrade in the health system to incorporate the new knowledge of this. And it's not actually new. Dr. Sarno has been around since the 60s, but unfortunately, it's taking a long time to get through to the, you know, the daily clinics, you know, the daily health clinics, which is, I mean, now it's they're saying, like, from the English NHS, it's like 50% or 45% of the visits to the doctors is with chronic illnesses and chronic pain. So, you know, it's not acute stuff anymore. It's you know, it's chronic, and we're having a major epidemic of, you know, mind-body syndrome, chronic pain around the Western world, actually. So it's tragic. But hopefully this will help, and, you know, many other people are starting to really come out and talk about, and the evidence behind it is, you know, is astounding, and so, you know, so clearly shows that this works. And like your beautiful story, it does work as soon as we know that there is not a structural problem, and it's actually in our brain that we learn it's neuroplastic pain. then we can start to decouple it and actually uncondition it as well. So like for me, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, the doctors are just working in a paradigm that is completely incorrect. I mean, most of them are just doing their best. It's what they've been taught and it's what they believe. But I wish I had an effective analogy, but basically it's just completely wrong. The paradigm that they believe in, that they're taught, that all of us grew up pretty much believing in, is simply false. And if we believe that paradigm, we will manifest that. When we're given a diagnosis and we accept that diagnosis, that's just a whole set of belief systems that we are taking into ourselves, and we are going to manifest, because we manifest whatever we believe.
Absolutely.
And if we believe something untrue, unfortunately, that's going to come out.
Yeah, it's so important to get this message out, and you say it so beautifully and so straightforwardly, and I love it. What do you do now in order to help people? You said that you wanted to get the story out. Are you actually doing something about it in other ways? Are you're blogging about it or writing about it, or?
You know, I wrote about it several years ago on the TMS forum online. I shared my story. I wrote up a recovery plan, and it's really just recently that I've been thinking, and I was, sort of active on that forum, but I've just recently been thinking I really want to find a way to get this out more. And I'm not actually sure how. I found that Facebook group where I found you, and I'm happy to be on there and be active on there, but I don't know what the most effective way is for me to get out, whether I should be blogging or whether I should write, something like a book or make videos. I really want to. I know that this was what I went through, as difficult as it was a tremendous blessing. The knowledge I have now is an enormous gift that was given to me, and that it is my responsibility to share it. But I don't actually know the best way of doing that right now.
Okay, well, we can stay in touch, because I would love to have you on again. But then, and also generally, we, being on any kind of fibromyalgia sites, I go into some of these fibromyalgia sites, and I'm, devastated by the way that they say fibromyalgia inspiration, and they write about stories of how tragic fibromyalgia is, and it's like basically a life sentence and a death sentence. And I'm just like, but it's not. I had fibromyalgia and I managed to cure it, and everyone's in this like paradigm, exactly, that we have it forever and there's no cure, and it only gets worse. And I try. It's like, of course, it's going to get worse if you think that's gonna, if that's going to happen. If that's what you believe, that's what you manifest, exactly as you said it. So it's tragic, and I try and go on tragic there.
I remember that when I was looking at the RSI, sort of information, and the repetitive stress injury, and it was saying, oh, you should use it. For me, it was my wrists, and it said, oh, you should use an electric toothbrush, and you should be using plastic knives and forks. And I said, why don't I just jump off of a building right now? I mean, right, reading this stuff, it's like, really, that's what I am now. I was 29 years old, and I have to spend my life terrified of using my hands. But that's what so many of these sort of sites and kind of, I guess, support groups are, sadly.
Yeah, and it's tragic, because it really does exactly that. Only make more concrete what they believe, and manifest that worsening of the scenario, and making more fear. So the more you fear, you pile up with the actual pain, then the worse it gets as well. So yeah, and so I talked about habits, because I realized that something that's not really been shown, like in Sarna's work and stuff, like there is some like tools, but not so many. And I realize now that in order for it to create like painless living is actually by changing our habits that we have in physical habits, so like eating and movement habits, but also in mental and emotional. So for example, bringing in journaling, or tools for self-regulation, or just check-ins during the day, so that you can have that sense of, okay, so how am I feeling now? And being in that state of kind of awareness of your emotional state, and also validating your emotions is a vital thing that's helped me, creating the space to feel them, but also like saying, okay, now I'm feeling, like a 5 out of 10 angry right now, and it's okay, I still love myself, and I still, or frustrated or sad or whatever. And that's been for me the biggest like gift, because I totally agree with you, and I hope that people get this message that pain is a gift, is a message that's right, it's trying to tell you something, that something's not working in your life, and you need to learn something about your mind, your emotions, and your mental habits, for example. So bringing this kind of thing into your life for a preventative, so that, because it is, we have a tendency, I think, that people who are in chronic pain, or have had chronic pain, and Charna talked about this as well, didn't he, that there's characters and personalities with chronic pain, and they're more hypervigilant, and they're more like sensitive, and they have more emotional, let's say they're more emotionally in tuned, empathic. And I think that's a big message as well to give to our listeners, that it's really important to learn how to regulate or at least soothe the nervous system to prevent flare-ups or other symptoms coming in.
Well, one sort of breakthrough I had recently that was sort of transformative for me with this is when I was just this past year, I went through this bout of asthma, and it was quite severe. I'd never had asthma before, and I knew that it was emotional, but it was, I wasn't sleeping. I didn't almost sleep for 2 weeks. I didn't take medication because I said, okay, I have to figure out what this is. But I sort of wound myself up in my life. And when I was able to get over it was finally when I said, hold on, this asthma is not something that's happening to me. This is me. The asthma, my symptom is me. This is some sort of expression of me. So I don't have to fear it, because for me, it would come on at night. And every day I would try to do emotional work, but the whole day I was scared. I said, is it going to start up tonight? Am I going to be able to sleep? Am I going to be up all night wheezing? And finally, one day I said, you know what? I don't have to fear this, because this just is me. It's not something that's happening to me. It's me. It's me trying to tell myself something, and I don't have to be afraid of myself. And that day I sort of broke through, and I realized what it was that had been going on, because I let go of that fear, and that was it. It just never came back again. It's a couple of times since then, it's come back very briefly, and I've immediately been able to get rid of it with emotional work. But it was really that breakthrough that I don't have to fear any of this stuff, because it's just me. Absolutely. It's not something outside of me that's happening to me.
Exactly, it is. And I work with a lot of especially with chronic 30-year cases, that people have had pain for so long that they've actually literally made it a part of themselves. So it's actually a part. And I work with, for example, parts work. So I actually get them talking about this is a part of me that's trying to protect me and trying to distract me for something. What is it that it needs in order for you to feel safe and not distract you anymore? So actually starting a conversation with that part of you, the asthma or the symptom of the symptom that's coming up, is a beautiful way of creating a dialogue, so that you can start listening, and asking, so what is it that you need right now? And it's been really beautiful to see how that progresses, and it's helped many of my clients come out of pain. And whenever it's, a lady has a shoulder problem, and whenever she has and starts to having a niggle or a frustration in there again, she starts to have, thank you for reminding me. I need to give you my, love again, and self, unconditional love. And I'm here to listen to you. And thanks for reminding me that I've been neglecting you for a while. And, so it's a completely different relationship to having this fear of like, oh my God, I don't want this pain, get it out of me, to taking on, integration of the whole as, and the part of the symptom or the pain is, part of you. Exactly.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I agree completely.
So it's really beautiful work that you're doing, and I would love to, somehow, like, say, collaborate or be part of a bigger, general getting this information out, because I think it's so important.
I
So
would love to. If there's anything I can do, let me know. I feel like I have so much going on right now. It's hard for me to start something up myself, but if you have something, and if you have something going and there's some way I can help, I would be so happy to do that.
Great. Yeah, sure. I'll keep you in mind, and I'll definitely get in touch again. I'm just looking through the questions to see if there's anything else that I would like to ask you.
Oh, there's one thing I'd like to share also that I think is really
Sure.
important. When I recovered from all this, from the pain initially, I was pain-free. I got my life back. It was so amazing. And I kind of had this idea that, like, I was done. Like, I did it. I had the pain. I figured it out. It's over. I got my life back. It's just going to be smooth sailing from here on out. And I think it's really important to share with people that that's not what life is like. Yes, when you're over your pain, you will get your life back, and it'll be better than you imagined that it could be. But life is life, and life is hard, and you have to continue improving yourself and working on yourself emotionally. And you should expect that you're going to get symptoms, when you don't do that, because none of us are perfect and we're all learning, but that's okay, because you know how to deal with those symptoms now. And sometimes you'll get symptoms you don't know how to deal with, and you're going to have to work hard to figure out what to do with yourself emotionally. And life is a journey, but as all of these challenges just make you stronger. And now thinking back of the person I was, the person I was a child before I had pain, but even just, when I was young, and the way I saw the world and how out of touch I was with myself, I would never trade that for anything. I would never trade what I've learned for anything, all of that suffering really was a blessing.
That's exactly this pain to power, and growing your greatness, because it really is about a gift. This, when you can come through, it's really easy to say when you've come through the pain, but I try and say this to my clients as well, that and anybody I'm working with, is that it's really, really important to start to change that relationship with the pain, and start to have this feeling that, okay, it's trying to show me something, and eventually you will find that there is a gift at the end of that rainbow, or the tunnel, or whatever you want to call it, because it's so, anybody how I've done these conversations with, these interviews with, have always said that there's been always a gift, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, because it's got me in touch with who I am, and my emotions, and my so much deeper than I would have done if I didn't have the pain to remind me constantly to come back to myself, and to have that intimacy with getting to know yourself again.
Absolutely. And it's just a journey. Imagine the best possible person you could be, right? I don't feel like I'm that person now. I get frustrated, I get upset, I get overwhelmed. And that just means that, I know I can get there, I can keep getting better. And that's going to be a journey. And, physical symptoms are going to be part of that journey, helping you along. But you just have to say, hey, I'm just going to keep going onwards and upwards. I never imagined that I could be completely pain-free, doing with no restrictions on activity or anything like that. I couldn't have imagined that all those years ago. And look where I am now, which means I can make that same sort of leap. I can keep going, up and up and up and up and up.
Absolutely. So that's an interesting question. Just to finish off, I know that you're probably already running out of time, but did you ever use visualization, or is it something that you have thought about using in the, now? Is it something that you've used?
I've never used visualizations, no.
Okay. Because it's something that I teach my clients, is like, basically, if we can actually, so the problem is, when you have pain, is that you visualize your day with pain. And so you can, you actually, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the more that you think about the pain, the more that, I remember having this when I had lower back, hip and back pain, that every time I had my daughter on the floor, and she was a toddler, and every time I would have to pick her up or pick something up from the floor. I was also a self-sufficient farmer, so it was really a lot about bending. And I remember being in absolute panic, fear, that every time I'd have to bend over, I would have this like stabbing pain in my right hip. And I remember that I started like literally doing things my whole life changed because of my pain. Like I realized I was doing things so that I didn't have that pain, and so I didn't have to bend down. And my whole rituals, like you were talking about, the your fear of using your hand, and how am I going to do my teeth from now on, and we start having this really deep sense of fear and changing our life. So what I do with my clients is that in order to kind of balance that out and to start, and visualization now, I don't know if you know this, but for example, in sports, one of the best, the athletes, it's been proven and been shown in many studies that by visualizing the outcome, your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between visualization and actual reality. So you're actually laying out the road or the blueprint for the tomorrow by visualizing. And it's been shown it's one of our superpowers. So it's like one of the senses that we can build the muscle up of visualization and help to actually speed up the process into health and into remission of the symptoms, because it really does work, giving the blueprint for the tomorrow by visualizing pain-free, being yourself being pain-free. So that's just an interesting question for you there. The last thing I would like to ask you is that, when you were in your pain before you had this kind of like transformation and realization, and now you see it as a gift, I would like to, if there's anything that you would have been, you would like to have been supported with, like somehow, can you think of yourself back then? How would you have liked to be supported? Because I know one of the biggest problems with pain sufferers as well is that they feel absolutely unsupported and people don't understand them, and they're so desperate. Can you think of a way, it might just, catch you out here, but just think of a way that you would have liked to have had that support? Because I would like to try and create that support for other people. You see what I mean?
Well, it's hard to say, because a lot of time for people who are in this situation, because nobody knows what's going on, right? I didn't know what was causing I didn't know the truth about my pain. I was caught in an incorrect paradigm, and so was everyone around me, the people that loved me. So, when you help people through that, on one hand, it's sort of enabling, right? So that's not positive. But I mean, if you're not supporting them, basically, it's just the blind leading the blind. I think the only way out is just learning the truth.
So basically,
I really think that's
for you, it's about finding. It would have been if you had been given the truth earlier, let's say.
Oh,
earlier.
Of course.
Okay.
No. As soon as I read that, I knew this was it. So that's it. It's just about being given the truth, because before that, I had a lot of family support. My husband and I were living with my parents then, because I couldn't even take care of myself. But again, none of us knew what was going on. So all of us were just really perpetuating it. Everyone meant well, but no one had any idea what to do. We were just completely lost. And so I really think the only way out is just understanding the truth, understanding what is happening. And then, and then you're empowered, then you get out yourself.
Yeah, I give Sarnos the first book, as a PDF for anybody who wants it, and to get them into the there's no drawbacks or blocks as the first information, because it's so desperately needed in this time. It really is.
Well, and the success stories, for me, that was so tremendously important. At that time, it was 2014, I think. I don't know if there was much on Facebook, but there's, the TMS forum online, and there's a huge success stories forum. And I can't even count how many I read. And what else was actually tremendously helpful was reading the Amazon reviews for the Mindbody prescription, because the reviews, they're just incredible when you read them. It's just one person after another saying, Dr. Sarno saved my life. And I must have read all of those reviews. I mean, when you read those reviews, it's just staggering. There was one review that said someone they knew, they told them about the book, and she had been in a car accident and had chronic pain since then. And all she didn't read the book. She just read the Amazon reviews for the book, and her pain went away. She just understood. She's like, oh, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. And it went away. Wow. So those are, I think that's an enormously, for me at least, it was an enormously important part of my journey, because again, it was about learning. It was about understanding that the paradigm I believed in was wrong. And here's all this evidence, so many people, thousands and thousands of people telling me that I'm wrong, and here's the evidence, and
absolutely. And that's how the truth actually starts to, that's how the belief starts to, like the seed of, can it possibly work for me? And it builds and builds and builds, and the evidence stacks, and so you become more and more behind it, and you change your mental habits and your emotional habits regarding your pain because of that. So that's how it really works. Beautiful, beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we end? Just, as a
no, I don't know
or...
if you can add a link. I would love for people to just look at I wrote up a recovery plan based on my own recovery, and I will send you that link. So I don't know if you can put it with the video. I shared it on the TMS forum. I probably should put it up on a website.
Yeah, I think I downloaded it, but I will.
And that was the process that worked for me. It was really just two-pronged. On one side, I had to understand the truth, of what was causing my pain, but then I had to believe that, because you can understand it much faster than you actually believe it in your heart. And that's where I think all those stories come in, because you read that, it's like experience. It's like you're absorbing other people's experiences, and that lets you actually believe what your head knows is true, that this is the correct paradigm. And then of course the other side of it is learning how to do that emotional work, which for me was completely new. I had never done anything of the sort emotionally, thinking about my emotions, accepting my emotions, not judging myself for emotions. That was the other side of it. So beautiful. Yeah, but I guess my message is that there's nothing wrong with you. It's very difficult to believe this now, I know, but this is a gift, and you can do this, you can get through it, and your life will be so much better than you had imagined possible.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for being on here. And
it's my pleasure, Joanna.
And we'll meet again. I'll be in touch. I'll let you know.
Absolutely. If there's anything I can do to help you, just with what you're doing, just let me know.
Great. Take care.
Thank you very much. Bye.